We probably ask ourselves why people think, feel, or behave that way. What makes us unique? Today, I am going to report personality. Personality, it refers to the characteristic pattern of thinking, feeling, and acting. There are three theories of personality: Freud's psychoanalytic perspective, humanistic trait theory, and social cognitive perspective. Freud's psychoanalytic perspective. Sigmund Freud was not a psychology's most important figure, but he is definitely the most famous. Psychoanalysis theory of personality that attributes thoughts and actions to unconscious motives and conflicts. It is the techniques used in treating psychological disorders by seeking to expose and interpret unconscious tensions. After graduating from the University of Vienna Medical School, Freud specialized in nervous disorders. Before long, he began hearing complaints that made no medical sense. Could these strange disorders have mental rather than physical causes? Freud decided they could. Many meetings with patients led to Freud's discovery of the unconscious. According to him, it is a reservoir of mostly unacceptable thoughts, wishes, feelings, and memories. Basic to Freud's theory was his belief that the mind is mostly hidden. So, hoping to unlock the door to the unconscious, Freud first tried hypnosis but with poor results. He then turned to free association. It is a method of exploring the unconscious in which the person relaxes and says whatever comes to mind, no matter how unimportant or embarrassing. He believes nga makatabang ang free association para mabal-an niya nganong naing-ana ang isa ka pasyente or ang isa ka tao. To know the past of a person may be factors nganong naing-ana iyahang behavior or attitude. Personality structure. To understand the mind's dynamic during this conflict, Freud proposed three interacting systems: the id, ego, and superego. Id stores unconscious energy where it tries to satisfy our basic drives to survive, reproduce, and act aggressively. Ego operates on the reality principle. Superego represents internalized ideas and provides standards for judgment, the conscience, and for future goals. For example, id, I need to eat right this second. So, ang id, nagasik siyag immediate gratification. It operates on the pleasure principle sa isa ka tao. Ego, you can't do that because you're in the middle of an important meeting. The superego, eating during an important meeting is rude and inappropriate. So ang role sa ego, siya ang nagabalance sa demand sa id ug sa superego. So the ego operates on the reality principle. Ang superego ang nag-force sa ego para makonsider niya dili lang ang reality but also the ideal. The superego focuses on how one ought to behave in a perfect world. So it judges actions and produces positive feelings of pride or negative feelings of guilt. So it is the ego's job to reconcile the two, kay contradict man ni silang duha, ang id ug ang superego. As the personality's executive, the ego juggles the impulsive demands of the id, restraining demands of the superego, and the real-life demands of the external world. Personality development. Freud believed that personality forms during life's first few years. He was convinced that children pass through a series of psychosexual stages. So psychosexual stage is the childhood stages of development. I know na-tackle na ninyo or nato during high school days. But today, let us kanang ibalik nato ni siya. Sa Oedipus, it is a boy's sexual desires toward his mother and feelings of jealousy and hatred for the rival father. Identification. It is the process by which children incorporate their parents' values into their developing superegos. Fixation. A lingering focus of pleasure-seeking energies at an earlier psychosexual stage in which conflicts were unresolved. Freud's psychosexual stages. The oral, 0 to 18 months. It focuses on the pleasure centers on the mouth, sucking, biting, and chewing. Anal, 18 to 36 months. Pleasure focuses on bowel and bladder elimination, coping with demands free control. Phallic stage, 3 to 6 years. Pleasure zone is genitals, coping with incestuous sexual feelings. Freud believed that during this phallic stage, boys developed unconscious sexual desires for their mother. They also feel jealousy and hatred for their father who is a rival for their mother's attention. So diri na naga-start nga nagaselos na ang bata tungod kay nabali na ang attention sa iyahang mama. Latency, 6 to puberty. Dormant sexual feelings. Dormant means inactive. Genital, puberty on. Maturation of sexual interest. Anxiety, said Freud, is the price we pay for civilization. As members of social groups, we must control our sexual and aggressive impulses, not act them out. Freud proposed that the ego protects itself with defense mechanisms. Defense mechanisms are tactics that reduce or redirect anxiety by distorting reality. First is regression. An individual faced with anxiety retreats to a more infantile psychosexual stage where some psychic energy remains fixated. For example, facing the anxious first days of school, a child may regress to the oral comfort of thumb sucking. Also, even homesick new college students may long for the security and comfort of home. Second is the reaction formation. The ego unconsciously switches unacceptable impulses into their opposite. For example, the unacceptable proposition, I hate him, becomes I love him. Timidity becomes daring. Third is projection. People disguise their own threatening impulses by attributing them to others. For example, he doesn't trust me may be a projection of the actual feeling I don't trust him or I don't trust myself. Fourth is rationalization. Offer self-justifying explanation in place of the real, more threatening unconscious reasons for one's action. For example, the habitual drinkers may say they drink with their friends just to be sociable. Fifth is displacement. Shifts sexual or aggressive impulses toward a more acceptable or less threatening object. For example, children who fear expressing anger against their parents may displace it by kicking the family pet. Sixth is the denial, refusing to believe or even perceive painful realities. For example, parents may deny their child's misconduct, or spouses may deny evidence of their partner's affair. The Neo-Freudian and psychodynamic theories. The Neo-Freudians are those psychoanalysts who accepted Freud's basic ideas. However, they veered or deviated from Freud in two important ways. First, they place more emphasis on the role of conscious mind. Second, they doubted that sex and aggression were all-consuming motivations. They emphasized loftier motives and social interactions. They agreed that childhood shapes our personality and ways of becoming attached to others. Alfred Adler believed that childhood feelings of insecurity can drive behavior, triggering strivings for power and superiority. Karen Horney, on the other hand, proposed that children's feelings of dependency give rise to feelings of helplessness and anxiety. These feelings trigger adult desires for love and security. Horney believed Freud's views of personality showed a masculine bias. According to her, the view that women are infantile and emotional creatures and as such incapable of responsibility and independence is the work of masculine in tendency to lower women's self-respect. Unlike other neo-Freudians, Carl Jung placed less emphasis on social factors and agreed with Freud that the unconscious exerts a powerful influence. But to Jung, the unconscious contains more than our repressed thoughts and feelings. He believed we also have a collective unconscious. According to him, from the living fountain of instinct flows everything that is creative. Hence, the unconscious is the very source of the creative impulse. The Talmud says, we don't see things as they are, we see things as we are.